So, in the second meditation, he starts to consider this idea that he can't be certain of anything. Descartes says, I've learned that I can't be certain of anything, except, he says, I have been doubting things. I'm having these thoughts about the doubts of my senses, of the evil genius. Well, those doubts, he says, must come from somewhere. And it seems like there are two places the doubts might come from. The doubts could come, in fact, from an evil genius. It could be that an evil genius has been deceiving me into everything that I believe, and thus all of those doubts are a product of that evil genius's deception. Except if the evil genius is placing these ideas inside my mind, there's one thing that is certainly true, and that's I exist. Huh. Okay, well, the other place the ideas might come from are myself. I could be coming up with them all on my own. I could be creating these doubts. My imagination could be the source of them. But if I'm creating these thoughts, if I'm creating these doubts, I must exist. As a result, he can be certain of one thing: he must exist. I'm certain you've all heard Descartes' famous line, I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. In Latin, it's cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. I have thoughts. And even if they're coming from an evil genius, I must exist for the evil genius to deceive me. So the very first thing he says I can be certain of is that I exist. Now, when he says that, he is talking about a thinking thing. Remember Cartesian dualism, okay? Remember the immaterial, non-physical mind. That's the thinking thing for Descartes. I think, therefore I am means that I exist, but I exist as an immaterial thing, he says. What he does not know for certain is that you exist. He does not know his body exists. He does not know the house exists. The only thing he can be certain of is that he exists. And then he realizes something else. When he has a perception that's clear and distinct, it is certain. He had a clear and distinct perception that he must exist to either create the thoughts or to have them put in him. He must exist. And there is something else he has a clear and distinct perception of, and that's perfection. Perfection. But he is imperfect. He is finite and flawed. And he could only have a clear and distinct idea of perfection if something perfect put it in him. Only something perfect can give an idea of perfection. Only something perfect can give an idea of perfection. So God must exist, and he is not a deceiver. Okay. Descartes is building what we call foundationalism. He says, the very first thing I can be certain of is I exist. Well, the next thing he can be certain of is that God exists, because he has this clear and distinct perception of perfection, and only something perfect could give that to him. So a perfect thing must exist, and that perfect thing would, of course, be God. A perfect thing is kind and loving. He is not a deceiver, which means an evil genius is not deceiving me. So I can now trust 2 plus 2 equals 4. I can now trust everything coming from my senses. I can now trust my memories. Okay. So it's like building a house. He starts at the bottom with himself. He says, that's the only thing initially I can be certain of. But from my clear and distinct perception of perfection, I get that a good God exists, which means that I get that he's not a deceiver. And from that, I can trust everything else. So he escapes skepticism, he says, using only reason, which is what makes him a rationalist. Does that make sense? All right. Well, if you were confused at any point, please feel free to rewind and re-listen. And if you have any questions, just feel free to send me an email. Just be certain to identify yourself in the email.